All right, we are live.
Hello, children.
Okay,
this
Dad.
is it's Father's Day, so this is the Punk Rock Libertarians Podcast, episode 354. I am autodassing as usual, and I am joined with Jared Schneiderman.
Hey guys,
and the Dundalk famous Alex Schlegel,
the Dundalk Demon.
I know.
What's going on, everybody? Good to be back on Facebook.
Dude,
Happy Father's Day, Otto.
Happy Father's Day to all of you dads out there. You guys are cool as shit. And some of you are. I don't know. Most of you might not be. I don't know. I don't know you.
I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably not that cool.
That is true.
Just kidding.
So we have a special guest. He is caught in traffic right now. He might be on. He might not be. Who cares? Either way, you're going to get some quality shit up in this motherfucker. I promise you this.
Bill's about 15 beers in.
I am so drunk. We're going to rock this shit because you know what? Listen to me. You guys are so cool.
Wow. You just contradicted what I said earlier.
That's okay.
How dare
anyway, so we got a lot of shit to talk about tonight. We got I don't even know as much. It's a lot to talk about, but there's just so much going on in the LP. It's pretty much made my entire past 2 weeks. Like I've literally lost sleep over this shit. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on, man. The LP is falling apart, man. So we have right now a chair that is literally resigned. The chair of the LP is resigned. Wow. I don't know if you guys know that that's a huge deal, but that's a really big deal. So Joe Bishop Henchman resigned over this bullshit that's been going on with New Hampshire. We talked a little bit about it on the After Hours last week. Thank you guys for checking in. Go to PRLfans.com to find out ways to donate to the show to get access to our After Hours show, because that's where a lot of the good stuff goes down.
All the good stuff it goes down.
I didn't want to say
the regular
that,
podcast sucks.
It really does. But you guys in the After Hours, that's when I step up my game. That's when I get a little bit more sober and I can.
Yeah, Phil's he starts to sober up.
I get sober. I get more drunk. It's either way.
It's like a wave. It fluctuates.
It's a wave. But I don't know what you guys did this weekend, but this past week, I don't know if you guys saw it. I rode a mechanical bull for the first time.
I did. Would you call that riding a mechanical bull? Would you call it just falling off of
it? That's exactly what I call it.
Yeah.
I was so drunk. I was at an event in it was in near Leesburg, Virginia.
Wow.
And, oh my God. So there was just a mechanical bull sitting next to me. I'm like, it's the only time in my world I will ever get a chance to ride a mechanical bull for free. And just see how it goes. And I even Googled how to ride a mechanical bull just to try to stay on as long as you can. But once you get up there and you're about like 20 seltzers deep, you're like
20 seltzers. Christ,
dude, nothing matters. Yeah, I had a lot of seltzers. And I got up there and everything went out the window. As soon as I got on top of the fucking bull, I just one little semi turn and I fell right off. So if you want to check that out, go to Punk Rock Libertarians on Facebook and you'll get to see me fall off a mechanical bull after one turn. It's literally the most anticlimactic thing you ever seen, but it was funny. I thought it was hilarious. Man. It was pretty funny, but I've never gotten the chance to. Have you guys ever rode a mechanical bull before?
I can't say.
Nah, I mean. When I used to, in my early 20s, when I used to go to PBR down at Power Plant, I would watch like the slutty chicks get up there with like no underwear on and get thrown off. That was the extent of my bull riding or my mechanical bull experience.
Yeah, that's all the same place, Jared. And if those that aren't aware, it's this kind of like douchey bar spot in downtown Baltimore.
Yeah, super douchey.
By the Inner Harbor, and it's like nobody from the city, like no one really goes. It's just like a tourist trap, and then like people from
it's only people out. Yeah, it's like county kids go out there, and it's
like people way out in the sticks, or people that are just like, oh hey, there's all these bars. We're visiting Baltimore.
Right.
Yeah.
There's what bar is that? I think it might
PRL or something. Yeah.
It's called no.
Oh, another one.
Angel's Rock Bar is attached to this redneck bar.
Angels is probably the best one there because it's just like chicks dancing on top of the tables, and they're dressed kind of like goth chicks. So it's kind of
yes. Dude,
so it's like kind of hot.
It's so good. It fucking rocks. I'm not even gonna lie.
That's like the only one that's really that. Well, so we used to go to the one called Lucky's, which was just
Lucky's, yeah.
But honestly, we would just hang out outside at their little tiki bar and just smoke cigarettes and drink beers. It was kind of chill, but yeah, that place, in retrospect, very much sucked ass.
Yeah, it sucked in the before times, and I bet honestly, I can't see how those places survived during the COVIDs.
Yeah.
I don't know. No one really would go to them. They would maybe be packed because whenever.
Well, that place, Dick's Last Resort, they closed down. They're kind of in that area,
Yeah, and plus it's dude, it's getting insane in the city. There's been 3 shootings the past 3 weekends in a row, multiple shootings in Fells Point, which is a huge.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, it's a great bar spot, bunch of bars, bunch of restaurants on the water, kind of
expensive. Fairly expensive,
old neighborhood, a lot of history.
Yeah.
But dude, they're just, and it's funny. I called into talk radio so basically, I guess it was 2 weeks ago. All the businesses, about 30 some businesses, bars, restaurants, wrote a letter to the city of Baltimore. They basically, and the one guy, he's a lawyer, and he ran for I think city council. But they basically petitioned. Or they sent this to the city government, and it was about almost 40 some businesses. And they said, we're not paying our taxes, and we're not paying any more basically fees to the city, permits or, anything to our liquor license, et cetera, all that bullshit. They're we're withholding it. We're putting in an escrow fund until you pick up the fucking trash.
Mm-hmm.
You actually have cops down here, doing their fucking jobs.
Sucked. I wanted holy shit, they're holding taxes. That rocks. And they're we're holding our taxes until you bring more cops to arrest people.
Well, see, I had read something that they were thinking about hiring private security.
Dude,
I'd be yes, do that. Hire real private security.
I called
that will actually do the jobs that, cops are allegedly supposed to be doing, which is protecting property and life.
Exactly.
Which they don't do.
Allegedly.
I called into talk radio because it's been the hot topic. So I called into Boomer Talk Radio. I got to start making that a habit of just calling.
Dude, can we do that on the podcast?
We could. Well, unfortunately, when we record live, it's probably all reruns or national shows. But usually Monday through Friday throughout the day, it's all local Baltimore and Maryland news. And it's just been a hot topic because the station I call in is kind of centrist to Republican boomers. So most people that are calling in, they're from out in the county or they probably haven't stepped foot in the city in forever. And they're all I got an opinion about the city. They got to arrest these thugs and put them in jail. And they're so out of touch.
Yeah.
They're so out of touch. And if they just allow the police to do their jobs and blah, blah, blah. And it's dude, it goes deeper than that. The public school system's trash. The police department's trash. The whole bureaucracy is trash. The whole city is run by idiots. And I called in just to bring up qualified immunity for the police. And I basically said, I thank these businesses. I commend them. They shouldn't pay any taxes ever because taxation's theft. And then even if they pay taxes, it goes to this bureaucracy that doesn't represent them, doesn't take care of them, hell, doesn't even pick up the damn trash, doesn't do their damn job. And I said they'd be far better off than relying on the corrupt Baltimore City Police Department. I brought up what your point, Jared. I basically said they'd be better off having private security and a private police force where they would be held accountable and would actually protect private property. And then I even tied in the COVIDs. I basically said, what do you think was going to happen when you completely shut down businesses for over a year and a half and only allow them to operate at 25% or 20% capacity, and then shut down hotels downtown and shut down tourist industries? What do you think? You basically created a vacuum of criminal activity because basically the big complaint by these businesses are that, oh, there's open air drug markets and like straight up people selling liquor, people straight up selling. And I'm like, well, the free market has spoken. Like, people want to hang out down here because it's right by the water. There's a big pier. But if bars are closed at 9 o'clock, if everything is forced to shut down by the government, basically you have a government imposed problem. And now you're turning to the government to solve said problem that was forced by the government shutting down your businesses. And I'm like, it's good they're withholding these money because these are the same institutions that were forcing you to shut down. So yes, I'm glad you're withholding your money. I commend these businesses. I hope they hold out forever to not pay their taxes and whatever, because these are the only businesses. I mean, they're basically cash cows to the city government that doesn't do shit for them.
Now, these shootings, were they like in any of the bars, or were they like just on the street or
out in the street? I saw security cam video of just people. Yeah. It was like about 2:30 in the morning after our last call, and everybody was just running scattered. Everything was closed. It was security camera videos.
Yeah.
One of them, like, people are just hiding in business entranceways, ducking behind cars. One car was shot. The person got cut, but they determined it. They took him to the hospital. They determined it wasn't a gunshot wound, but their car, like, there was just stray bullets flying everywhere. Like, it's just, yeah. And, and that's the other thing too. Not once will they bring up the point that, oh, we're just one more gun control law in Baltimore City away from just peace on the streets. It's like, they're just these idiots.
I'm sure whoever was doing the shooting was a law-abiding gun owner, right?
Oh, 100%, So stay strapped or get clapped regardless if you're going into Baltimore City. But yeah, it's just insane. Like, they won't talk about that. The fact that, Baltimore, or just the state of Maryland, has some of the worst gun laws, and it's still a May issue state. You basically have to go through a gun qualification course, pay like $200-$300, maybe upwards, to handgun training class, 16 hours, and that is just to legally purchase a handgun to have in your own home, let alone actually be able to have it on your person. You have to be one of like a protected class and apply. You have to go through a whole process of fingerprinting, and you have to basically justify that, well, I own business that deals in large cash. Like, I have to go to the bank, or I'm maybe say like I'm a drug rep, or like I'm a private security, or you basically have to justify why you need to have a firearm, why you need a carry permit, which is disgusting. It's a May issue state. And then they wonder why is all these shootings happening? It's like, I don't know, because the cops don't give a fuck. Oh, that's the other thing I brought up when I called into the Boomer Talk Radio. I'm like, you do realize there was a Supreme Court ruling that you think the police. There was a Supreme Court ruling, and I forget which one it was, but they basically ruled that the police have no obligation to protect citizens. That it is exactly. That they have no obligation to protect you. So why are you counting on this like corrupt police department? And then it's so funny, like, let's defund them, and then it's like, oh, we can't defund them, but then it's just like this constant pendulum of too much policing, and then not enough policing, and then it's just this pendulum, and then not the elephant in the room is basically like, what if you just allow private security and people to carry firearms? I don't know. Maybe this problem would just go the fuck away.
Didn't Johns Hopkins get their own police force? I don't know if it's like separate from the city, but
no, they didn't, because
they
rallied against that.
Rallied against it because
there's this delusion where people feel like private security equals horrible
racism.
Results. Yes. And it's the same bullshit they pull with, like,
well, I mean, what do these people want? Like, they're like, defund the police, which I support, but then it's like, are you gonna? But also ban guns so you can't protect yourself,
right?
But also, who's gonna provide you with security? Are you just gonna like rely on everyone to just get along? Like, it's not gonna happen, dude.
Yeah, it's just like,
so 100%. Fucking stupid, man.
Yeah, that's what it was, Jared. I don't know if remember when because my girlfriend actually works for said university, and she actually works in the offices. Remember when they were now, granted, okay, so it was like a culmination of things. Like, Hopkins was getting funding from ICE or something. So that's one of the reasons why these leftists that were protesting and literally locked themselves in her office building on the campus. They locked themselves in. Remember that was happening on Hopkins campus. They literally chained themselves to the doors. Basically, their whole office shut down, and she was either she had to work at another office at the other at the hospital campus. Yeah. So long story short, like they were basically arguing or protesting the fact we can't have Hopkins private police, actual like campus police, because right now they have security, but they're unarmed. They have no teeth, and they don't. So they were going through the process, I guess, through the state to actually, I guess, have their own university police force. But they were protesting the fact, well, we can't have that because they're going to arrest people and you know, it's racism and we got to defund the police and But
I mean, were they actually private? Was it a private police force or was it like?
It would be police that are, they would be armed. They would have some arresting authority, but they would be through Hopkins, But I guess what the thing is, it wouldn't.
I'm just trying to understand what that looks like because like.
Well, it would just be like
I know Towson, like I'm pretty sure like Towson has like a police force, right? Or they just use like the Baltimore County Police and they just give them cars that say Towson on it or something, right?
Yeah.
So like if so you're still subject to like all the bullshit of Baltimore County Police, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm just curious if that would have happened with this Johns Hopkins thing. I mean, it's probably better than fucking Baltimore City Police.
Yeah,
but if it's just Baltimore City Police in a different uniform, then that's the same shit,
Yeah, I mean, this is going back. This article is from June 15th of 2020. Now they put a pause on it. They're not basically for the past 2 years. The private policing plan had been opposed by students and faculty. Argued that the force would not increase safety and would put the welfare of people of color on campus in jeopardy. Okay, first off,
first of all, they're already in jeopardy, dude. That area is like
is
not good.
Right. Exactly. It's like if you go a couple blocks now, you go one direction, it's a good neighborhood. You go a couple blocks in either south or east, it gets pretty sketch. I mean, that's like that's Baltimore. You go a couple blocks in one direction and it could get pretty ugly. So that was ridiculous. The other aspect too, it's like, well, they would be more accountable. Like, so look at the Baltimore City Police. One, they don't respond. B, like do you honestly think it'd be a lot easier to hold police accountable at a private institution or the massive bureaucracy failed bureaucracy that is Baltimore City, plus like, so it was crazy. They basically protested for I get how long, but they locked themselves in the building. And my girlfriend basically said, like, when they moved back in, they like the last person basically agreed. I guess they held the school or they held that office like completely hostage, and the school like hostage. They were literally working. They would have to close their doors, and then eventually they said we can't work here anymore because they were like literally like stinking up the bathrooms. They were like living there. They were camping out like nonstop. And literally for like a week after the last person agreed to leave and they escorted out, they had to like fumigate and professionally clean the place because these shitters basically were there for weeks, just locking themselves in the building.
Inside the building and shit.
Oh, they were just, they were basically like a bunch of grifters, like a bunch of, homeless, like it was like a homeless camp. Inside the building.
Were they students?
Some students, some outside, just, your typical lefty, unhinged fucking lunatics protesting. And it just basically turned into a homeless camp. It turned into like basically a bunch of crust punks occupying the campus. And they had to get it professionally cleaned. They couldn't go back to work, like even after the last of the protesters were finally escorted out of the building, and they, agreed to, all right, well, I guess the school, said we're not going to go forward with this because I guess it had to go through the state legislature for them to do this.
Yeah.
So, but because as of now, I mean, they still, I guess they have private security, but they're not police. Like they're basically just have flashlights and radios. It's like that's
well, it's like whenever I see like sometimes I'll see like there's like security forces that are like patrolling the hood right? You're just like, yeah, they're not doing shit, man.
Right? Like, oh shit, that's a cop. It's like, no, that's just yeah.
That's just some dude that's making $20 an hour to drive around.
Right. If that.
Yep.
If that. Yeah. But yeah, so that was Baltimore City, it's going to shit. It already was, but the COVID, I mean, dude, it's rough. I mean, I don't even know if I'd want to go down to those places because like the place where honestly, I feel safer in some places that are straight up hood than places where a lot of people congregate because it just seems like or like the so-called safe places where people would go don't seem that safe anymore. And it seems like like I feel safe.
I mean, my neighborhood feels like my neighborhood's fine, you know.
Right.
But,
I feel safer.
We don't have like large congregations of people and shit.
Yeah, it just seems like when you get a whole bunch of you see it everywhere. I don't know what it is. What do you guys think? Do you think it was maybe like the lockdowns and now that everything's opening up, people just lost their fucking minds, or maybe like psychological issues, or just it just seems like more and more incidents are just happening. Like people are just losing their fucking minds.
I would occasionally hear about shit happening in Fells, but not like multiple shootings. Like that's pretty new.
Apparently
I know like a few things that happened in Canton, but it was like once a year, like some fucking yuppie would get his ass like capped because he was like being a retard.
But now it just seems more rampant. So anywho,
yeah. Well,
shifting topics.
Oh boy, yeah, man. So what's like? There's a like pretty much the Libertarian Party is gone to shit. It's fucking Like the chair resigned. Joe Bishop Henson resigned. We had Region 1 and Region 8 reps resign. We had, there's talks now. They're looking to in Pennsylvania and in Virginia. They're trying to disaffiliate from National. There's just such a shit show going on.
What spawned this?
New Hampshire.
I want to respond to Nick Bacone. So Nick Bacone, you guys know, if you're longtime listeners, you know that guy is he's a mensch. He's the greatest dude ever. And he straight up told me like a year ago, like we've had him on the podcast a dozen times, and he's literally said he was once a state organizer in Ohio, I think, for the Mises Caucus, and he was like, "No, look, Mises Caucus is going to destroy the Libertarian Party." He's like, "It's a good thing. Don't worry, guys. It's a good thing." That. He has literally said that a dozen times.
Yeah, he says that like every time he comes on the show.
I know, and it's
like either they'll save or destroy, one or the other.
No.
Well, no, he just says it's going to destroy. Like you're either going to. Okay. Well, he's like, you're either going to just completely fail, but if you succeed, you're going to destroy the party.
Yes. And that's exactly what has happened. The fucking Mises Caucus is destroying the fucking Libertarian Party.
So tell me, lay out to me the exactly what happened in New Hampshire.
All right. So we talked a little bit about it in the After Hours podcast last week. Thank you for our Patreon subscribers. You got to listen to that. If you haven't checked out our Patreon, please go over there and check it out. $1 a month. Get on board, or go to PRLfans.com. Find out other ways to support the show. But we talked about how the New Hampshire party, it all goes back to Gilletta Jarvis. She was the chair of the party. So they voted. So the ex-com is all Mises Caucus. Oh, here we go. Oh shit. What's up, everyone? Our surprise guest is here. Finally posted with the most baller shirt ever. I want to introduce first time to the podcast, Mr. Buck Johnson.
What's up, you guys? Can you hear me? Everything good?
Yes.
Sounds perfect,
dude. So we just were starting to get into what was going on in New Hampshire, the Libertarian Party, but I think this kind of trumps that. So Buck, man, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on. I know you got caught in some traffic on the way here, so we really appreciate you showing up.
Yeah,
I'm really glad that we get to have you on the podcast because I know you are a longtime hardcore punk rock libertarian in the sense.
That is true.
I know. So, dude, for all of our listeners who are living in a cave on Mars with their eyes shut and their fingers in their ears, please, dude, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about the Buck Johnson.
Well, I run the Counterflow podcast on the Renegade Media Network, which is run by Thaddeus Russell. The show used to be called Death to Tyrants, and we've rebranded a bit. I've been into libertarian politics, I guess you could say, in that general sphere since about 2000, which makes me sound old because that's been 21 years of this stuff. And punk rock libertarian seems like an appropriate venue to be on for me because I've been into punk music and hardcore music, a lot of kinds of music, but certainly punk and hardcore since I was a teenager, basically. So that's I think where I might fit it. Oh, and Alex has a Jedi Mind Tricks shirt on.
Yeah.
Which is the group that does the theme music on my podcast.
Shit, man.
It's nice. It's a manifestation of Jedi Mind Tricks. I think this one was called Army of the Pharaohs, but that's
hell yeah. Yeah, they're the shit.
It's all the same thing.
Yeah. Nice. Hell yeah. I just got to see, I think that was like the last show I saw in the before times, before everything went to hell. I saw Vinny Paz and Esoteric. I mean, it was in Baltimore at Auto Bar, which is like the go-to hardcore and punk like venue.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, but the COVID shut that down. But that was probably the last show I saw in the before times, and it was fucking dope. I got to meet him afterwards. He's just so down to earth.
Oh, so, cool.
Yeah, Vinny passes a shit.
Did you talk politics at all?
Not really, because there was a lot of other people, and I didn't want to monopolize his time. So just got a picture, just got to shake his hand, just bullshit for a minute, and and plus it was a work night. I had to get up early the next day. Couldn't really,
I get the impression from his lyrics that he would at least be sympathetic or adjacent to some of our.
100%, 100%. I'd like to reach out to him because I'm sure like he'd be down for like.
I thought it. I wanted to as well, and I still do, but now I'm worried because I never got permission. So if he ever heard the show, he'd be like, "Wait a second,
you
owe me."
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he'd be like that though.
I don't either, but I'm scared.
His label might be.
Yeah. But no, he's definitely seems like, and that's the thing. And Otto and I have talked about it. Like, there's so many people within hardcore and punk that are just. Like we were talking Madball and Wisdom in Chains. Like there's so many people that I think we could reach out in the culture that would rock with us with our ideas and philosophies.
I've reached out to Jonathan Joseph from the Cro-Mags.
Yes.
He did not fight back, and I don't want to spoil this one because I reached out to someone about as big as you can get in that world that actually plays giant places, and he has said yes. And then January 6th happened, and he goes, "Hold off, let me," because it's a famous person, so he can't. He was trying to get scared that he would compromise some of their stuff by coming on a show that was anti-government. And so it's been a few months though, and I think that I actually was going to reach out this morning, and I haven't yet. But anyway,
well, no, that's great because. Man, I think a lot of this changed with the whole COVID lockdowns when about a month or two ago when Madball, we're talking Murphy's Law, Wisdom in Chains, they all got together in Tompkins Park in New York City and they said, fuck it, we're doing a show. And they did a show, and I mean, it got crucified in the most woke hardcore scene. They got crucified. They got thrown accusations saying it's a super spreader event, and it was just like I could just tell like these people were done. They were done. Like they didn't want to have to fucking deal with this shit anymore. We're gonna put on a show, and fuck it, be damned, whatever. We're gonna do it. John Joseph's other band called Blood Clot played. So it wasn't Cro-Mags, but it was Blood Clot. And I've also seen before live. They're also really good. And it was, I mean, I wish I could have went to that show because I'm so like, I feel like I took it for granted because I've been in the hardcore punk scene since about 2002. I went to my first show, and I've been all about this. And it's one thing I took it for granted. And I think that's a lot of things, like people like listening to the show now, even the punk, hardcore. I took for granted that. And I think the last band I saw was Marauder played in DC. And I went, and that was like November, December of 2019. And it was few and far between. Like I'm in my mid 30s now. And so of course, you just kind of, you have family, you have a job. But I mean, really like connecting back to like what made me feel alive was going to these hardcore punk shows. And I just miss it so much. And I wish I would have went, but I'm so glad that they were so brave and they went and they're like, fuck it. We don't care what's going on. We're putting on this show. It's outside. Everyone's getting vaxxed. Everyone's had COVID. Like, we're just going to do it. And they did it. And if you look at New York City, none of the figures rised after the show. 2 weeks after, it wasn't a super spreader event. It was all bullshit.
Yeah.
So like, I'm so happy that like hardcore and punk was like the first. They were the first of this to say, fuck it, we're going to do a show. And they did it. And 3,000 people showed up to it. And it was awesome.
And they've doubled down. Like Freddie from Madball and John Joseph they've weathered the storm basically of the insults. And Jonathan Joseph's been on Facebook saying like, basically, screw all of you guys trying to take us down. We're not going to be taken down. No one's sick from this. And if you don't like it, stay home.
Right. 100%.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, that's awesome. Like, so with everything that's going on with COVID, like I feel like everything's like coming down. It's like everything's shattering with these people, and I think it's a subculture of music, and this underground scene is like they're the first on the line of like for this stuff to go forward. And I feel like with that show, everything else kind of collapsed, and now all these bands went forward, and they're just like, we're booking tours, we're going out, we're gonna do this shit. And like I know this band called Knocked Loose. They're playing at the Auto Bar in Baltimore. I'm gonna go see them. Guar and Napalm Death are playing at Baltimore Soundstage. Like, there's just all these cool shows that I'm just like, fuck it, I'm gonna go. I don't care what the show is, I'm just going.
Yeah, there was a time during 2020 where when the hysteria was at an all time, my wife and I spoke, and it was like, in Texas, there were shows to be had, not hardcore, of course, but we would go see shows, there's kind of people spread apart and everything. And I said, could you imagine a freaking hardcore show right now? Like, I'm not sure. I want it, but I just looking at the reaction, the climate that was out there, it's like, I can't imagine one happening again. Like with that close interaction and people on top of each other and sweating, I thought that's going to be the last thing that comes back. Unfortunately, I think that's the case. And fucking Madball and Jonathan Joseph had the balls, and Murphy's Law, like, screw all of this. We're getting people together. It was badass. Love it. I love that a hardcore show did that first.
Yes. That's awesome. Yeah. We talked about it whenever that happened. When did that happen, Otto? That was like about a month ago. It was like a month and a half ago. You actually hit up Ron Paul Liberty Report when he was out.
I hit Dan McAdams. I'm like, dude, Dan, like there's a shit going on in New York City. Like, you need to like understand what's going on. And he's a former he was kind of in a punk and back in the day, and so he was kind of receptive of it, and which was awesome, because I'm like, this is where like the underground comes forward. Like, this is where like I spent the past like today, like I'm just like listening to old songs that kind of got me, being in the punk rock and hardcore scene from like the late 90s, early 2000s. Like, that's what kind of radicalized me, and I was just spent the whole time listening to music today, and I kind of shared that, the attitude with Dan McAdams from Ron Paul Liberty Report, who's fucking rocks. And I was just like, dude, I was hoping he'd talk about. He never really talked about it on the show, but I thought it was a big enough point to mention that this is where like the culture turns. Like, this is where, and eventually everyone's kind of gotten over it, and now all these leftist bands have now announced they're doing tours, and no one's saying shit, because it took Madball, and it took Blood Clot and Murphy's Law and Wisdom in Chains to say, hey, we're doing a show. Fuck it, we don't care. We're going to do it. And if you show up at Tompkins Park in New York City, we're going to put on a good show. And if you don't want to come, don't come. And I think that's so cool. And I think that a lot of that, like a lot of these tours that have been announced because it all it took was that one band to break through. And I'm so happy it was like a hardcore show. So, you know, that's where I get a lot of my roots from, is back in the early 2000s, you know, going to hardcore shows. I've been going to my whole life, you know, from since then on. And it's just so cool. It's so cool to feel like there's a part of that, like I'm connected to, where back in the day shows would just get put on. I mean, like every other weekend I was in Baltimore City. I would go up to Pennsylvania, Virginia, DC, constantly going to hardcore shows, and it was awesome. And like a lot of that stuff, you know, like I was listening today, I was going back to like all these bands keep announcing they're like, oh, this is the 20th year since like Pennywise released their album Land of the Free, since Bouncing Souls announced their like How I Spent My Summer Vacation, Anti-Flag, you know, talking about their old albums. And it brings me back to like when I was a teenager, and they're just like, we need more of this shit, to get people just to think like, we need to move forward with this. We need to move forward with like opening up venues, opening up shows. So it means a lot to me. So I'm so happy that like hardcore was a part of that. To break down these veins.
Yes, exactly.
So dude, Buck, so like, man, thank you for coming on. Like we want to, a lot of people, I mean, more people probably know about your show than they know about our show, but if tell us about your change. I mean, I know you were Death to Tyrants podcast. That's where I got to know you from. But how do you think like you've changed since you've gone to the Counterflow? Like, what do you?
Well, part of the change had a few different reasons. One was going aboard Thad's media network. He didn't want me to be pigeonholed into just being an ANCAP show and something with such a strident title. Like it was funny. He was describing it to me. He's like, it's so like, I'm an ANCAP. I'm in your face. He goes, I don't want that, but I still want you to do it. So could you start a different show for my network? And I don't know about you guys, but just doing one show a week for me is a freaking lot of work. For one, I'm a firefighter, so my schedule is, if I'm at work, it's for 24 hours.
Damn. Yeah, that's tough.
2 to 3 days a week, depending on how the week falls, I can't do it. So that leaves the other days to book the guests, read the book if it's an author, research, write up the notes for the interview, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I had already been thinking about the name change. Believe this or not, there's people in our circles that have turned down appearances on the show because of the name, because it had death in it. I won't say any names right now, but certain economists get scared with that kind of language.
Murphy is not cool with that. The time
Murphy's Law.
I'm not saying any names, but
can't confirm or deny.
So I had thought about that towards the end of the year. Like, I wonder if it seemed like an undertaking. Like, golly, to change. I had been doing it for I don't know, since 2000. I always forget if it's 17 or 18, but a long time. And I was like, shit, I don't know if I should do that. And then Thad came along and he gave me this offer. And I was like, well, I don't change the RSS feed, which for those listening that are unfamiliar with that, basically, if you're a subscriber to Death to Tyrants, all I would do is change the name and you'd still be a subscriber to Counterflow. So he said, yeah, I don't want you to change that. I want to keep the subscribers you already have. And I said, well, I don't want to do 2 shows. I'll just rebrand it and come on your media network starting January 1st of 2021. And so it'll kind of be just a quick switch over. And of course I said, you have to like help me out here and give me some advertising and stuff like that. And we worked out those deals. So basically it's the rebranding happened, and it did allow me to interview people outside of our circles, meaning, so I interviewed the doctor that his name's escaping me, that pretty much coined the carnivore diet. And I can get people like that on rather than just pure libertarian stuff, because I am interested in like lifestyle things like that too. And
how'd you get hooked up with Thad?
Because I interviewed him on Death to Tyrants. It's funny, he was just in my house this weekend, and he wanted to review our initial meeting, and I found the messages in my Facebook. I wrote him. He was a little leery, I think, also of the title, and his basically his manager is this guy named AJ that used to produce Tom Woods show. And he wrote AJ, "Hey, is this Death to Tyrants guy cool?" And AJ said, "Oh, yeah, you should do it." So he came on. We discussed the culture war, and then we got into all kinds of tangents, really. And afterwards, he was like, "Dude, that was one of the best interviews I've ever had from the guest perspective." And my girlfriend said that's the best I've ever done on an episode of someone's show because you got things out of me that no one else has pulled out before. And so he was being real kind. And we started messaging back and forth, and it kind of went from there. He's like, I really want you to do this thing. I'm going to start this media network, and I'm planning to have several podcasts on it, but I'd like you to be my first guy because I really like what you do, what you have to offer. And I think we can take the glass ceiling off that you have right now with that title and kind of grow bigger. And I think you would be happy. And so I said, sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and now we're all buddy. We don't see eye to eye on every issue. Of course, if those of you who know Thad, he comes from a way different spot than I do.
Yeah,
at where we're at now. But even when he was here over the weekend, we would not really have debates because he's really cool with just saying, "Okay, that's your point of view. Cool." And he doesn't really even have to debate you.
Right.
But sometimes I'm like, well, I want pushback. Like, why don't you agree with that?
Yeah.
And so he's just super cool.
Nice.
Yeah, he's been extremely helpful behind the scenes the whole way and trying to a mentor. He didn't call himself that, but I call him that. So
nice.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've been listening to his podcast for a long time, and yeah, like you, I don't always see eye to eye with him, but I feel like he always has an interesting perspective on things that you don't hear from other people in like the libertarian or liberty movement. Like he has that sort of left wing-ish taste, but kind of also is like rebelling against the left wing.
Yes.
At the same time,
he can speak their language very well.
Yeah, exactly.
He speaks the language of academia, and I think that's really important because if you, it's a tough challenge for someone like me to convince a progressive that what we're saying is legitimate. He, on the other hand, has a little bit, he speaks that language. So I think it helps.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that part of him. And I told him there's a few guys that make me think when I hear them, when I listen to them on shows, Michael Malice, Jeff Deist, and Thad are three of the ones that always bring something like, damn, I didn't think of it in that light, or I never articulated it in this manner. So I appreciate that aspect on Thad as well.
Yeah, totally.
Jeff and Thad are definitely people like who make you think about things in different ways, and they put things, and it's, it may not be the it might not be the most least controversial way, but like they make you think. And like I love that. I love radical messaging. And we talk about, we just got done talking about punk and hardcore. Like I think back to when I was a kid when I was like in the first or second grade, like listening to like Rancid and like bands like Anti-Flag, and just like, whoa, like it kind of like it triggers you in a way. It's just like, it's just like, wow, I've never thought of things in that way. Like I remember listening to Body Count, listen to bands like, they sing songs like Cop Killer. Yeah. Like, both my parents are police officers, and I love my parents. I have a good relationship with my parents, but like hearing a band talk, to Cop Killer, I'm like, it's like, whoa, like what's this about? Yeah. It makes you think in different ways, and whether you agree or not, or it brings you into a different consciousness of like thinking of how things go on the other side of how it looks. And man, like I love that. I love being able, like, that thought, that process, going through. So I can definitely relate to that. Every time I hear Thad, his podcast and stuff, he's had some really great people on, and I love that network he has going on. So that's great, man.
Thanks. It's been a whirlwind, it seems like, but I love it.
So how's it like? So in Texas, you're in what part of Texas?
So it's right outside of Austin. It's a small town called Lockhart. It's about 30 minutes southeast of Austin, and it's wonderful here. Austin, awful.
Yeah, I heard it's going like completely, like just insane lately, like lefty.
Oh, yeah. Like, it used to be, this is almost hurts me to say this, but it used to be like, I can't even get it out of my mouth. It used to be like the good kind of lefty, if that makes any sense. In fact, a long time ago, I told a mentor, a life kind of mentor, one of my best friends. He's older and he was in town, and we both have similarities as far as music goes. And I just said, man, if you could just get rid of like the hippies and that kind of shit in this town, it would be so damn cool. And he was like, the hippie vibe is kind of what gives some of the flavor to Austin that makes it pretty unique. Yeah, I guess he said something, and I was like we said with Diced and Thad, I never thought of it in those terms. I guess you're right. But now it's the hippie Austin lefty shit's gone. It's all kind of Silicon Valley type progressives. It's really dangerous demographic in the country is not Mexicans crossing the border or Middle Easterners coming to have a terrorist plot. It's freaking white upper class women that are progressive.
Oh God.
And Austin's full of that.
Oh fuck.
And so
is it like a California colony?
It's like a Karen colony?
A Karen colony?
A Karen colony.
Yes. So they've turned Austin into just a junk mess. There's the homeless populations just exploded. There's tents all over the place. It's disgusting.
It's turned into a San Francisco.
Yes, without the history of like the old San Francisco. It's just a city right there in Texas that had a cool music scene.
Yeah, South by Southwest every year. I mean, that's like.
But now
I always wanted to go.
That sucks now. The last 5 years, that shit went downhill. South. Again, I sound like an old timer, but South by Southwest did used to be cool.
Back in my day.
Yeah, and it initially was a place where you discover new bands and maybe they can get some startup going or some new fans and touring. But now it's just like Snoop Dogg plays there.
That's whack.
So it's become like a
corporate
music festival, and all these people flood into Austin. And it's, like non-binary chicks, fat chicks with pink hair walking around with eyes.
Fuck that. Because it was when I was in the Air Force for about 11 years maintaining Empire. And when I was stationed over in England, I went to a lot of punk and hardcore shows. And one of the bands that I saw quite frequently, actually brought him on bass with a couple of my buddies that would go travel around seeing hardcore shows around England. We actually brought them on bass. And it was so funny because there was a band called Gallows. I mean, they suck now. The lead singer is no longer their lead singer. But at the time, they were getting pretty big. And they did South by Southwest. And that's when they got signed by, I think, Epitaph. And then they were like on the Vans Warped Tour. And it's like, holy shit. They went from, and when we were seeing them, we would see them play like these small ass venues all around England. And Frank, actually, their lead singer at the time, tattooed me, but we're like, damn, this band is really fucking good. Like if they get an opportunity, they're going to blow up. And I saw I was still over in England and I saw that they were doing South by Southwest. I was like, good for them, and I saw the lineup of bands. I was like, imagine seeing such a wide variety of music. But like you said, Buck, it sounds like it's just fucking going downhill. Like corporate, just total
big time corporate. A mess of people come into town, and the town's just nasty already. So many bars closed over COVID stuff, lockdowns. So it became.
Are they super COVID-y there?
They were until I don't know. The magic arbitration wand was waved the other day, and now I went to Whole Foods. I had already not been wearing a mask because, I still go into Austin. My gym's still there. There's a Whole Foods there, which I guess I'm picky with my groceries, so I still shop there. But I had not been wearing a mask, and no one said anything. So I was like, fuck it. I went there a week ago, and even certain employees didn't have masks on. And now I think the progressive virtue signal is to not wear one because it shows that you've been vaccinated.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
no, you're so right. Because we're all in Baltimore, on the outskirts of Baltimore City. I know Jared lives in Baltimore City, but like Baltimore City was like the last to open up. Matter of fact, they're lifting all their COVID restrictions on July 1st. Me and Alex were in the county, like right outside Baltimore City, And it's been a nightmare, man. Like this whole time, like we've been looking at Texas and Florida, just like dreaming because Hogan, we have a Republican governor, but he's just as trash as any Democrat you can meet because he was an anti-Trumper, just typical what you'd expect. And dude, he sucks so bad, and he was always like, "Wear the damn mask." That was his cool bit, was saying, "Wear the damn mask," and it's so pathetic. But he's over it now, and now we're kind of lifting restrictions. But like, I went to the store the other day after they lifted all restrictions, and like I'm at like the liquor store, and like everyone's wearing a mask. Everybody. I was the only one not wearing a mask, and I'm like you guys know, like this isn't a thing anymore, right? And it never really was a thing to begin with. But it's so hard to work out of these people. But the fact that it's over, like it's the vaccines, the people are naturally immune to COVID because everyone I know is either vaccinated or had COVID or both.
Right.
I feel like I'm the only one who hasn't had COVID and is not vaccinated. Like I feel like I'm just like alone on this island, but yet there's people who are freaking out still. And I mean, I don't know, like being in Texas, we went down, me and Alex, we went to the National Libertarian Party convention in last summer in Orlando, and it was just like a different scene, man. Like everyone was just cool with it. Was a lot more relaxed. There was a little bit of a mask mandate, but it wasn't adhered to at all. Mm-hmm. It was pretty chill, and like so that was my only experience out of being in this tyrannical state of Maryland. Being with the whole COVID restrictions. So it's weird. Like I know Texas just pretty much got free, but Florida's been pretty good the whole time.
It got lifted here. I think it was March 2nd, which is technically Texas Independence Day. In fact, it was that day. I think that was symbolic of sorts. And I remember my small town, for the most part, pretty cool about it. No one really cared. You'd still see some certain people walking around with masks after it happened. But in Austin, that became initially the thing. The governor, this is too fast. He's trying to kill us. And so you would see bars or stores saying, we still require masks. This is too soon. So that was the kind of like, we want to be free here pretty soon, but not when the Republican guy says it. That's too soon. We'll figure it out, And so since then, it was just slow steps. It's almost like progressives were looking around like, who's going to do it first? Oh, you did it? Cool. It reminds me of what our governor does. He just waits around for DeSantis to do something. He's like, 2 weeks later, I'll do it.
Yeah. He seems like such a lackey to DeSantis.
He is. Yeah, he's a follower big time.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd rather him follow DeSantis than say,
right.
But yeah.
Yeah, it could be. He could be following someone worse.
Like Larry Hogan.
Yeah, but so yeah, we were starting to get into it before you came on, Buck. We were just talking about the whole debacle within the Libertarian Party as the past week and a half. I don't know if you want to get into it now, Otto or Jared. Maybe take it over maybe save that for our after hours.
No, like I want to I want to hear listeners to hear, because I know Buck has probably like a different perspective on this as we do.
Well, you were in the middle of talking about New Hampshire.
Me and Alex are both Mises Caucus members. We're both members of the LP of Maryland. We're both like doing our best, and Jared's kind of like hanging on the sidelines. So he's kind of over the whole procedural process.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, I don't have the time for that shit.
Yeah, it's terrible. When Otto, you said we were down at the LP National, I was like, God damn, you're a glutton for punishment.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I went to one. I did the LP National remote because I had work stuff, but it was one and done for me. After that, I was like, I'm out. I'm no longer in the party. Like, done. I was a delegate.
That was the eat a dick one. That wasn't
it.
Yeah. I mean, it was great, but it was also just like long. Yeah. And I just can't stand all this Robert Rules of Order shit. And I was like, I can't handle this shit. Like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Yes. I used to do LP functions in Austin, starting about 2000 through the first, 6 years or so that I became a libertarian. And in 2004, we had Michael Badnarik as the LP presidential candidate. And he was in Austin. So I kind of felt like, I'll keep going to these things. And I used to walk away from them, not when Bad Eric was speaking, but just the actual meetings. And I would be like, I would not know if you brought me in fresh that anyone there was a libertarian. There was no politics discussed or no philosophy. It's like you said, Jared, Robert's Rules of Order. Hold on. Who wants to speak? Who's got the gavel? Shit. It was like, I can't do this. And then I went back to maybe be a delegate for Hornberger. And I looked around, I was like, these are those same motherfuckers were here 15 years ago. They've not done shit this whole time. This little social club, and there was a little bit of an influx because of Hornberger of some. I came back, and then some other people got involved, and I could tell there was this like, hold on, who are these people? And then I was like, screw this. And I will say from that, we have now something called an Austin ANCAP group, which is like probably 50 big at this point. And so nice. I did meet a lot of those people around that time, which was nice. But the actual LP function stuff, I have no interest in anymore. That was terrible. And Scott was one of the guys that tried to get me in. And we're at one of the meetings, and he says, "Wait a second, I just realized you got to live in Travis County. I live in Round Rock, which is a different county." And I was like, "You son of a bitch! So you don't even have to be here. Now we're stuck here." And so he's like, "Shit, I can't be a delegate for Hornberger anyway. God damn it!" So,
what?
Yeah, it's so funny because we had Scott on our show this time last year, and it was I'm comfortable after everything's passed and he's talked about it publicly, but he was just we were telling him like, dude, like we were one of the people that like we backed Hornberger because of your endorsement. He's just like, "I'm so sorry. Yeah, I did. Like, I'm so sorry I did that to you guys." Like, he was like, "Hornberger won't listen to me."
That's what I understand as well.
Right. And you know what? I love Scott Horton so much. I think he is one of the best people on this fucking planet. Yeah. And I liked Hornberger too. I think Hornberger just, with LP, you gotta, people are so fucking sensitive. And now we know what's going on with the LP. Like, it's fucking collapsing because of the Mises Caucus. Like, it's straight up falling apart. We got the chair resigned. I just like cats and dogs living with each other, mass hysteria. It's fucking insane.
We're getting so many people to rage quit, and it's beautiful.
Dude, Otto, can you resume what you were saying about New Hampshire, though? We kind of left everyone blue-balled on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, most people, if you're like I said, like if you're on Mars living in a cave with your eyes shut and your fingers in your ear, you would know that like the chair of the LP just quit after this. The LP New Hampshire had a bunch of pretty much Mises Caucus take over the communications. They took over the board, but they had a non-Mises person that was the chair of the party. Her name was Gilletta Jarvis. She got doxxed by an awful human being named what was her name? I don't fucking Jackie Perry.
Yeah, dox whoever it was.
Yeah, Jackie Perry. She's an awful human being, but whatever. So she doxed Gilletta Jarvis, and then they had a vote to like excommunicate Jackie Perry, and then Gilletta used that vote to then like create her new party and like and pretty much get rid of all the Mises Caucus members, and it was a whole fucking debacle. And it's clearly Nick Sarwark was involved and Joe Bishop Henchman was involved, and it was just a complete shit show. And so when we talk about so then he resigned from his post, and then we had like a bunch of region reps resign from their posts, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. It's just chaos, all because the Mises Caucus took over one state party, really. And it's
what happens? Do you elect a new chair, or does the vice chair become?
She's now her own chair of her own party of New Hampshire, and now they're like voting, like votes are still ongoing. It's just a mess, man. It's a mess right now.
They voted so basically this chair went rogue, and she confiscated their data, computers, like party assets. Like there was apparently, and I believe the Mises Caucus executive committee up in New Hampshire, they lawyered up, and they called a lawyer because they had video of them taking all this to a storage unit, whoever was behind all this, along with this former chair. So the thing that was debated, like, one, this is so corrupt. This goes against LNC rules. You need a three-fourths vote to disaffiliate, basically the nuclear option. Like, the chair the LNC chair, Joe Bishop Henchman, rage quits, and he's the one who wrote this letter and basically like approved that, oh, she wrote up these bylaws with some rogue character to not be named. But apparently Karen Ann Harrows, who's the LNC secretary, interviewed Gillette Jarvis and said, oh, there was someone that was in her ear and said, oh, there's another way. Because this all stemmed from the fact that the Mises Caucus, it might just be a little too libertarian with our messaging on Twitter. And the one individual, Jeremy Kaufman, who sits on the board of the Free State Project in New Hampshire, his tweets were fucking fire. Like, one of them that got all the loser brigade within the LP and these, just fucking losers that say, oh, this is very, how can we do this? I'm like, really? We can't go after John McCain and Anthony Fauci. So the tweet was, it was, John McCain's brain tumor saved more lives than Dr. Anthony Fauci. That's a great fucking tweet.
I love that tweet. That was brilliant.
Right. So,
and Jeremy Kaufman, his name, he's kind of out there with some of his shit. Some of the stuff I agree with. Other stuff I'm kind of like, hey, man.
The whole thing about child labor. There was something about child labor that people were butthurt about.
It's a pinnacle of libertarian philosophy. It's like, hey, the child labor laws are anti-libertarian. Like, it just is.
I wouldn't say it's the pinnacle, but yeah, it's definitely libertarian.
Would you not say, hey, look, a law is restricting people from working and being employed?
It's definitely like, anti-libertarian, and it's bad for poor families that don't want to have to live on the government dole, that maybe they want to have their kid work a few hours at the diner, like cleaning up tables. Like, what's the big deal? We're not living in like the coal mining times, like
we're not, I know it's not
kids aren't getting black lung anymore. Like, kids are just working at McDonald's. Like, it's not a big deal.
Right. And so it's just a whole mess of shit that's going on. And I just we talked about it before, but like Nicholas Picone of the Peace Freaks podcast, he told me a long time ago, over a year ago, he said, look, the Mises Caucus, they're going to destroy the Libertarian Party. And he's like, that's a good thing. He's like, don't worry. He's like, Phil, or Otto, like, that's a good thing. And he's like, don't worry about it. So, and even as a few months ago, he showed up to the Pittsburgh Mises Caucus event with Jeff Dice and stuff like that. And he was like, yeah, he told Michael Heist, he was like, yeah, you guys are going to destroy the Libertarian Party without just because they're going to freak out. Everyone's going to freak out and they're going to lose their shit. And I'm like, I think this is a microcosm of what's going on. Like, why I don't think the liberty movement within the Republican Party has a chance, because it's the same thing that's going to happen on a bigger scale with the Republicans, with a lot of these liberty Republicans, quote unquote. So, I don't know, like, Buck, are you cool to stick around for our After Hours podcast?
Yep, I am.
Awesome. Cool. You know what? Well, we've what's that?
What's that? On your OnlyFans?
For OnlyFans. Yeah.
For Otto's OnlyFans.
That's when Otto gets naked.
Yes.
It's a treat.
So no, like, listen. So thank you so much for everyone for checking in. We're gonna hop on over to our After Hours, and if you guys want to check out our After Hours, please sign up for our Patreon. For little as $1 a month, you get to check it out. Buck's gonna stick around. Alex, Jared, we're all gonna stick around and talk about this a little bit more. If you guys don't want to give out to Patreon, please go to our page, PRLfans.com. There's other ways to donate to our show with crypto, anything else you want to go to. So we also have t-shirts for sale at libertariancountry.com. If you use the code PRL or PRL Podcast, you get yourself a 10% discount. If you want to spend $50 or more, you get yourself a 20% discount with the code PRL2. We were brought to you tonight by Hidden in Plain Sight by Moral Bob in his podcast. And Buck, if you want to tell people where they can find you and anything you want to shout out right now, just go for it.
Yeah, you can find me. It's easiest. Just go to the main websites at counterflowpodcast.com. Got t-shirts. Still have a couple of Old Death to Tyrants t-shirts on clearance, but those are going quickly. It's got all the links, social media. It's got Instagram, Twitter @BuckRebel, and the Facebook page has got every episode there. Counterflowpodcast.com.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, until next time, everybody, live free
or die.